Welcome to the Empowered Flow podcast. I'm Tris Alexandra, holistic clinical nutritionist, women's health and menstrual cycle educator, and mama. Join me and experts in nutrition, fitness, mindset, and holistic healing as we explore conversations to open your mind to a different way of thinking on all things women's health, hormones, periods, cyclical living, and fertility. Whether you're seeking knowledge, inspiration, or a supportive community, you've found your tribe. Let's dive in. Hey guys, it's Tris here for another solo episode in the pregnancy and postpartum series. So we're nearly wrapping up the end of this series. We've got this episode where I want to talk to you all about nutrition for pregnancy and postpartum. So I'm going to break down trimester by trimester, some of the considerations when it comes to your nutrition to think about. And I also want to touch on some of the controversial topics surrounding pregnancy nutrition. So in particular, vitamin A and iron infusions. So let's dive in. Now, I'm sure it's going to come as no surprise that your nutrient and energy requirements during pregnancy and the postpartum period are significantly increased compared to your, what you normally require. So obviously you're growing not only another life, but in the first trimester, you're growing a whole nother organ. You're growing a placenta. Your body is changing a lot. We're increasing blood stores, and obviously supporting the growth and development of your baby. And then postpartum, you've got to think about not only are you recovering, your body's recovering, it's repairing, like tissue repair and remodeling that's happening in the pelvis and the pelvic floor. And, potentially if you've had any instrumental birth or C-section, there's a lot of recovery that's going on from that as well. But then also if you're breastfeeding, your body is utilizing a lot of nutrients and a lot of energy, so calories, and a lot of hydration, a lot of water to produce quality breast milk for your baby as well. So I would say the postpartum period, your nutrient requirements are at the absolute highest because you are recovering as well as producing breast milk. And then you're also sleep deprived and, the body's under that level of stress as well. Now, before we dive into nutrition for each trimester, if you're not already pregnant yet, if you're thinking about trying to conceive or you're already starting to try to conceive, I highly recommend you go back to episode number 18 where I talk about preconception nutrition. So really setting up your preconception care, preconception period before you do fall pregnant. The other thing I want you to think about if you are in that preconception phase, and something I talk about often, is really getting to understand your menstrual cycle. You really want to be able to pinpoint your ovulation, so know the signs that your body is sending you when you have ovulated, and know how to confirm ovulation either by basal body temperature tracking or ovulation predictor kits, but also know when your fertile window is, so looking at cervical mucus changes. Now, I talked about this in the preconception nutrition episode. I also have a masterclass called Sync Your Cycle masterclass that is available on my website, and I'll link it in the show notes. And that is all about teaching you how to effectively track your cycles for fertility or for avoiding pregnancy as well. And I highly recommend that to really get to know your menstrual cycle. One of the things you'll also often hear me talking about is using wearable devices to chart your basal body temperature. You can use a digital thermometer as well, but I really love the Temp Drop. It is a wearable armband that you wear overnight. It tracks your temperature overnight. You get the average temperature and it tracks it into the Temp Drop app. Makes charting your fertility and tracking your fertility super simple. They do have a huge sale on for the month of July. So if you're listening to this in July, from the 1st to the 31st of July, they have 25% off their Temp Drop wearable device. And then you can also use my code for a further 10% off. So huge 35% off. It is an investment. So if you are thinking about getting one, I highly recommend jumping on that now. And I'll link that into the show notes as well with the discount code and where you can get the Temp Drop device. It's what I used it's what I use for my fertility tracking and what I use to help me track my cycles, to help me fall pregnant as well. So let's dive into today's episode. Let's start off with the first trimester of pregnancy and the nutrition considerations for your first trimester. So trimester 1, there is rapid growth and development of your baby. Everything, all the organs and everything are developing in this trimester. You're growing a placenta, your body is changing a lot. So nutrient demands are really high. At the same time, a lot of women are also managing morning sickness or nausea. I don't know why it's called morning sickness. For a lot of us, it can be all day, every day, unrelenting, but morning sickness, nausea, and a lot of fatigue that can happen in this trimester as well. So your nutrient requirements do increase. There's not a huge increase need in your caloric requirements, your energy needs. So we're looking at about 100 extra calories. So what we really need to actually think about is how can I increase the nutrient density of my meals? So it's not necessarily about needing to, quote unquote, eat for two. Absolutely honor and follow your hunger. But what I'm saying is what is most important is the nutrient density of your meals. How much nutrients can you pack in? What things can you swap out that you can swap for more nutrient dense, versions? So some of the things that that just for you to think about is, for example, you can grate veggies into meat or lentil bolognese or those kind of tomato pasta based sauces. So grating extra veggies into that to get more nutrients in. If you're making smoothies, adding something like frozen spinach or chopped frozen cauliflower. I promise you can't taste it. It makes it nice and creamy, but it just adds more nutrients to your smoothies. Because a lot of women are struggling with nausea, and I know, really simple foods, quite often women will say, I just feel like crackers or peanut butter toast or something like that. And it can be really hard to actually get more nutrient dense foods in. I totally get that. But even think about if all you can manage is toast with peanut butter, could you sprinkle some hemp seeds on it to get some more some omega-3 fats in there and some other nutrients in there? Something else I really love to use is nutritional yeast, which it has a really nice cheesy flavor. It is dairy free if you require, but it's a really good source of B12 and some other nutrients in there. If you're into rice dishes, like stir fries with rice or soups or anything else that you're putting rice into, you could swap the rice for quinoa, which has got a little bit more nutrients in there. If bread is something that you're consuming a lot of because that's all you can stomach, choose the best quality, go for a really good quality sourdough or multigrain, so that you're getting more of those, nutrient dense foods in. Now, some of my tips for managing nausea is to eat small regular meals and snacks throughout the day. So what you're trying to do is preventing hunger, preventing drops in your blood sugar levels, because when blood sugar levels drop and when hunger increases, typically that's when we start to get a lot more nauseated. Now, one of the things that can actually really help with nausea is protein. The most challenging thing here is that protein tends to be the last thing that we feel like when we're nauseous. So just think about getting small serves of protein throughout the day to keep those blood sugar levels stable, to keep on top of the feeling of nausea. It's really hard. It's really hard to get a balanced and varied diet in the first trimester to really get those nutrients in because you do feel nauseous. So please just go easy on yourself. Know that any of the work that you did pre-conception, any of the supplementation that you're keeping up with is going to keep you going through that first trimester. So just do the best you can, honestly. And then, even making sure that you have some really good healthy snacks and things on hand so that you're not getting really hungry or you're not struggling to find something to eat when you're feeling nauseous. Some of my favorite healthy snacks that you could consider that you might like to try, like protein smoothies, dips with veggie sticks, some veggie fritters or mini frittatas. You could make some homemade protein balls or cookies or muesli bars, or just a really simple trail mix like some nuts and seeds and dark chocolate and popcorn and dried fruits are really good as well. I really like, some whole grain crackers or rice cakes that you could have with cheese or avocado, guacamole, or some tuna. Really simple, a cup of bone broth. It's a really easy way to get some more protein and amino acids in without, eating actual protein if you don't feel like it. Edamame is a really good source of protein, so you can buy edamame in the freezer aisle. You can buy it shelled, and you can cook it boil it and eat it. And then just, other simple snacks like fruit and yogurt and nuts. The other thing for your first trimester nutrition is to continue your supplementation. Obviously checking in with your healthcare provider, whether it's your nutritionist or midwife or whoever else is looking after you. But when it comes to supplementation, I guess from a health practitioner point of view, from my point of view, is what got you pregnant keeps you pregnant. So unless you have been advised otherwise, or unless you're taking something that's not safe for pregnancy, generally you continue the supplements you were taking preconception into pregnancy. There are some times that I'll recommend my clients that, hey, you can actually stop that once you're pregnant because you no longer need it. But most of the supplements that you were taking preconception, we will continue throughout pregnancy. Now, something that I do also recommend in each trimester of pregnancy is testing iron. So this is a really, really important one. Hopefully you would have tested iron in the preconception phase and you've gone into pregnancy with optimal iron stores. But if not, I would suggest testing iron again at the beginning of your first trimester, in your second trimester, usually after around 26 to 28 weeks, because there's a big transfer of iron that happens to baby across the placenta around that time. And we tend to get a big drop in iron stores then. So you want to see what your iron storage is after that drop happens. And then we want to test it again late in the third trimester just to see where you're at as you go into childbirth, because if you do have any postpartum bleeding, and you will have postpartum bleeding, but we just want to make sure that your iron levels are okay going into birth as well. Now, I want to talk about iron and the reason why I suggest getting iron tested regularly is because you really want to keep on top of it to avoid an iron infusion. Now, iron infusions are sometimes, of course, medically necessary, but our aim really is to avoid them because, like anything, they do come with risks. They do come with downsides to having an iron infusion. There is some research suggesting that iron infusions can create oxidative stress and microbial inflammation. Because it's it's a huge dose of iron. We're talking about 1,000 milligrams of iron that you're taking intravenously. There are some risks in pregnancy that if you have an iron infusion late in pregnancy, that it can increase the risk of spontaneous preterm birth. And please reach out to me if you're wanting any of the links to the studies on these. So obviously this is just increasing the risk. We're not saying that is absolutely going to happen. But just as I'm saying, we just want to avoid having to get an iron infusion, and we can do that if we're regularly testing it and then keeping on top of or changing supplementation if needed. When it comes to iron supplementation in pregnancy, the amount that I would recommend will differ depending on your iron storage, your ferritin levels, and how your body is utilizing iron. So we need to look at full iron studies panel. So ferritin, which is iron storage, iron, transferrin, saturation, and your hemoglobin levels. Now, those tests need to be considered for where you are at in your pregnancy, not against the normal reference ranges for someone who's not pregnant, because the ranges will differ, and there is a different, threshold and standard for how low ferritin and hemoglobin can drop during different stages of pregnancy. It is normal for both of those to drop. Obviously, we don't want to drop them too low because that comes with risks as well and can make you feel extremely tired. But we just want to make sure that those levels are kept at an optimal level. When it comes to iron supplementation in pregnancy, I definitely don't recommend, and I've spoken about this before, but I don't recommend using a high dose iron supplement like Multifer or Ferrograd C. Again, they're really, really high dosages. We don't absorb them properly across the gut because anything above 60 milligrams of iron raises something called hepcidin in the gut, blocks iron absorption, and then we struggle to continue to absorb iron until hepcidin levels drop, which take about 48 hours after a high dose of iron supplement. So what we look at is a much lower dose of iron alongside the cofactors that help with iron absorption and transport in the body. So vitamin A, copper, folate, B12. And there's also some really good research around the use of lactoferrin that can increase the absorption of iron in the gut and increase ferritin and iron levels. So there are some supplements that I use, some really good practitioner supplements that contain lactoferrin in the iron supplement alongside the cofactors. So that's one of the best ways that you can go for supporting your iron levels throughout pregnancy. The other one I use, and this is controversial and will surprise a lot of people, but I absolutely love liver and organ meats, both outside of pregnancy and during pregnancy, not only for iron, but also for a lot of other nutrients like zinc, B vitamins and minerals that are in the liver. But yes, absolutely, to also raise iron levels. Now, there's a lot of controversy on the use of liver during pregnancy because it contains vitamin A. So I did want to talk about vitamin A in pregnancy as well. Now, there's a lot of fear-mongering when it comes to vitamin A and pregnancy, and quite often women are recommended not to touch any, definitely not, we don't want to be taking supplemental vitamin A in pregnancy, but there's also fear-mongering around food that contains vitamin A like liver and pate. And where that comes from is there was, the original research was surrounding vitamin A in pregnancy because of synthetic vitamin A or supplemental vitamin A in really high doses. So what was found was that if we're thinking about the acne medication, Roaccutane or Accutane, there is a form of vitamin A in that called isotretinoin. I can never say that properly. It's not the same as retinol that's found in food. So it is a synthetic form, and in certain supplements and in the acne medication, this is in extremely high dose, and that has been found to be to contribute or to cause deformities in babies if that's taken during pregnancy. So obviously something that we want to avoid and not be taking synthetic vitamin A in pregnancy. Now, the research around that and the supplement and the medications that was used was a dosage of over 10,000 IUs a day. So massive, massive dose. And obviously really, really sad that had happened before the research and before it was known that wasn't safe during pregnancy and that synthetic vitamin A was harmful. But what that has also meant is that now there's a lot of fear around food-based vitamin A consumed moderately, of course. Like, we don't want to be eating bucket loads of liver or pate or, food-based vitamin A, but consumed in moderate amounts in pregnancy, there's no evidence that is harmful. Okay, so let me just repeat that again. There's no evidence that food-based vitamin A in moderate amounts is harmful in pregnancy, but we do want to avoid synthetic supplement-based vitamin A's. So that means that you can, if you feel comfortable with it, consume organ meats during pregnancy in any trimester, and it is safe to do so, and it is really beneficial. We actually do need vitamin A during pregnancy, and quite often our standard Western diet is low in vitamin A because we don't eat organ meats, we don't eat a lot of butter, and these are the food sources that contain vitamin A. So let's move on to trimester 2 for your pregnancy and some nutrition considerations for trimester 2. Now, there is another increase in energy needs by this trimester. So you're looking at about a 200 calorie increase. Now, you're not needing to count your calories or anything like that. But just think about starting to really tune into your hunger levels. You might either add in another snack during the day, or you might just increase the portion size of your main meals and spreading that across like your protein, your carbs, and your fats, so each of those macronutrients. Now, I've already specifically spoken about iron because that is one of the nutrients that increases significantly in the second trimester. So you're needing 27 milligrams a day by the second half of your pregnancy or the second trimester. And it may mean for a lot of women that this is when supplementation needs to start, if not earlier, depending on your levels. But when it comes to food, look at your food sources of iron as well. So we really want to be doing like a food first approach and then supplementation to support that. So you're looking at, really good quality red meats 2 to 3 times weekly, or more if you're wanting it. Lentils, chickpeas, tofu, quinoa, dried apricots, and seeds are all sources of iron as well. But just remember that heme iron, so animal-based iron sources, are much more bioavailable and are absorbed a lot better than plant-based sources of iron. So if you are predominantly plant-based or you don't eat red meat, then you do need to increase your plant-based non-heme iron sources. The other thing you want to do is pair your iron-rich foods with vitamin C-rich foods, because vitamin C does increase the absorption of iron. So vitamin C-rich foods, things like citrus, strawberries, capsicum, tomato, kiwi fruit. We also want to make sure with iron that we're not having it alongside, so whether it's iron-based foods or supplementation, that we're not having it alongside anything that is going to block iron absorption. So things that block iron absorption include coffee and tea, dairy, calcium or zinc supplements. Now, calcium is another nutrient that does increase in the second trimester, particularly towards the middle to the end of the second trimester. There's a really big growth of the baby's bone development, and nutrients that are required for bone development, including calcium, vitamin D, and magnesium, do tend to increase. I actually found in both my pregnancies that around this time I started craving milk, and I don't drink cow's milk personally. I don't like it. I do have dairy. Don't have an issue with consuming dairy. I just personally don't like the taste of cow's milk, but I was really craving it. So I would find myself drinking almond milk. Not that I did find a calcium-rich almond milk, because I figured that it was the calcium that my body was craving. But I just thought that was really interesting. Sometimes we can tune into the cravings we get in pregnancy, and it tells us what the nutrients are that our body's actually craving. So when it comes to calcium, dairy, yes, great source of calcium, but there are some other foods that are either fortified with calcium, so fortified soy products or almond milks, and other plant-based milks. Chia seeds, almonds, edamame, broccoli, and bok choy are all higher in calcium as well. And that brings me to third trimester of your pregnancy and the nutrient requirements or nutrition requirements to consider. So by third trimester, we're really looking at a significant increase in energy or caloric requirements. So you're looking at about 500 calories a day from your pre-pregnancy nutrient requirements, or pre-pregnancy caloric requirements, I should say. And that really is to help with not only increasing your nutrients that you're consuming, but also the amount of energy that your body is requiring for the growth of the baby. And also towards the end of pregnancy is when baby starts to put on a lot of its, or most of its fat stores to prepare it for birth and, early, in its early days post-birth. Now, there's a few nutrients that are absolutely critical and really do need to be increased throughout pregnancy, but really in particular this third trimester. Now, I would say omega-3s is probably top of the list, with DHA being the most important. So omega-3s, there's DHA, there's EPA. They're your marine sources of omega-3s. And then there's also ALA, which is a plant-based source of omega-3s. Now, the most important here is the marine sources, because you're really wanting a lot of DHA. DHA plays a crucial role in baby's brain and eye development, and there are studies showing that higher intakes have been shown to reduce the risk of postnatal depression, preterm birth, and also improve the cognitive development for the baby as well. There's also research just showing that higher seafood and fish consumption throughout pregnancy improves cognitive development, improves IQ levels for babies as well. So omega-3 is a really big one. We're looking at getting in oily fish at least, like I would say, try and get it in 2 to 3 times a week at least, and you're looking at about 150 gram serve. So that's like your salmon, sardines, mackerel, is your real deep sea oily fish. You will get a little bit from chia seeds, walnuts, and flax seeds as well. But like I said, you're not going to get a lot of DHA. You will get the omega-3, ALA, but we're really needing that seafood intake for the DHA. When it comes to supplementation, I recommend a good quality fish oil with a high DHA throughout pregnancy. So making sure that you're continuing to take that. But then also just knowing that about 2 weeks prior to your due date, it is recommended to stop fish oils just because of the potential risk of increased bleeding during pregnancy or birth or any, surgery that may be required. And then you can pick those back up post-birth. So and I'll talk about postpartum nutrition, but you can start taking your fish oils again post-birth as well. The other things I really like is during the third trimester is some raspberry leaf tea. So this is okay to start at around, I think it's around 32 to 34 weeks. But if you're looking at buying some raspberry leaf tea, typically it's marketed as like the third trimester pregnancy sort of tea. So just look at what week they recommend starting it from. I think it's week 34. And you're looking, I think it's 1 to 2 cups a day. Now, raspberry leaf tea has been shown to potentially help to tone and strengthen the uterine muscles and potentially aiding in more efficient contractions during labor. So it's a really nice tea to have in the last few weeks of your pregnancy. Another thing to consider for third trimester is really supporting your gut health and your vaginal microbiome health through both prebiotics and probiotic foods. So prebiotics being things like garlic, onion, asparagus, the greener sort of bananas, resistant starch, which comes from cooked and cooled potatoes, and any other probiotics like prebiotic fibers like partially hydrolyzed guar gum, PHGG, and then also probiotic foods, so your fermented foods, so sauerkraut, miso, yogurt, kefir, all really beautiful for getting in some probiotics into your diet. So that's going to really help with the gut and the vaginal microbiome. If you do have a vaginal delivery, it does mean that the baby will get some of that microbiome as it passes through the birth canal, and that helps to start to populate their gut bacteria and support their immune system and their gut health. If you do have a C-section birth, if you are not able or choose not to have a vaginal birth, just know that if you continue in your postpartum to support your gut health with probiotic foods, prebiotic foods, you will get a transfer of that through your breast milk to support your baby's gut microbiome development. And you can also consider looking at probiotic supplementation. There are specific strains that are really great for both mother and baby that you can take that help to help go through the breast milk as well. Now, there are 2 other things I'm really big on when it comes to third trimester nutrition considerations. The first one is planning for labor. So thinking about hydration, snacks, making sure you're having a really satiating meal in early labor before your active labor starts, because when active labor starts, you'll probably find you don't have any hunger at all. And that's why you need some just some snacks that someone can feed you that can keep you going, because it is absolutely hydrating and fueling for a marathon. And the other thing to plan for in third trimester is postpartum. So starting to think about prepping freezer meals that you have on hand ready to go for your postpartum period, because in the first couple of weeks and potentially even probably beyond that, you are not going to want to feel like cooking, but also you're trying to juggle all of the new things, the nappy changes and the late nights and the sleepless nights, and I'm making it sound awful. It's really absolutely beautiful and a beautiful time. But there's a lot going on. And if you can support yourself by having prepared meals already stocked in your freezer, it makes life so much easier. So both of my pregnancies, I did a really big cook up and prepped lots and lots of freezer meals to have on hand for my whole family and also for myself for lunches. Some of the things to think about and some of my my top foods to consider is slow cooked food. So things like ossobuco, because you're getting the bone in, you're getting all the beautiful minerals and collagen and nutrient rich foods from the bone in meats like ossobuco, but any slow cooked meats are really great. Also because they're rich in iron, so you really want to be replenishing iron stores. I really love Ayurvedic kachari, which is a beautiful spiced meal made with lentils and rice and lots and lots of healing spices like turmeric and cumin and ginger and garlic. That is an absolutely divine, like delicious meal, and can be really easily just reheated and eaten by the spoonful, while you're feeding or holding baby. Some of the other meals that I do is things like pulled pork, because you can make a big batch of it and use it in lots of different ways. What else did I make? Snacks. So I've made loaves of banana bread, or something that I call like morning glory loaf, which is basically just like kind of like an almond meal loaf that's got like carrot and apple and chopped dates and nuts and things in it. It's like absolutely delicious. Other meals that are great to make include something like shepherd's pie. I pack mine with vegetables, so things like mushrooms and chopped frozen spinach and carrot, celery, zucchini, like peas. I put everything into it. Obviously, like a really good organic beef mince in there. I will shred up some liver or use a liver powder in there as well. So it's and then some bone broth. So it's a really nutrient dense shepherd's pie. Some of the resources that I recommend looking into for, I guess, both recipe inspiration and nutrition information for pregnancy and postpartum include Lily Nichols. She's got a book called Real Food for Pregnancy, and she's got lots of information for postpartum as well. And then there's a book called The First 40 Days by Heng Ui, and both of those resources are phenomenal when it comes to some meal and recipe ideas and nutrition ideas for postpartum period. Now, I already recommended getting iron checked again in each trimester. So of course, like late third trimester, you want to recheck your iron levels before you go into or getting close to your due date. You also do want to recheck iron again at 6 weeks postpartum. So really making sure that you're being able to recover and replenish your iron stores in the postpartum period. Low iron there is going to not only exacerbate things like fatigue that you might already be experiencing, but it can also contribute to things like postpartum hair loss and some other side effects as well. So really wanting to make sure that at your 6-week checkup, you're getting iron studies checked. I would also at the same time get your vitamin D levels, folate, B12, just make sure all those nutrients are being replenished in the postpartum period. The other thing that I would be testing at the 6-week checkup is your thyroid. So thyroid studies, most doctors will only do TSH. If you're experiencing any symptoms, whether it be fatigue, rapid weight loss, weight gain, constipation, hair loss, thinning of the hair on your eyebrows or in your eyelashes, I would absolutely push for further thyroid testing. Or if you've had any lumps in your throat, or you can feel any lumps around the thyroid gland, so potentially thyroid nodules, then we need to be looking at full thyroid studies. And in fact, when it comes to my clients, I will do a full thyroid panel regardless, because TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, does not give us enough information about what is going on in the thyroid. So we really need TSH, T4, T3, which are your thyroid hormones, reverse T3, and thyroid antibodies. Really, really important that we get the thyroid antibodies checked as well. Pregnancy and postpartum and all the hormonal changes that are happening put a lot of stress on the thyroid, and the thyroid is a very adaptive and responsive organ to stresses. And I see a lot of clients that do have things going on or dysfunction happening in their thyroid in the postpartum period, whether it be hyper or hypothyroid, whether it be some antibodies that have started to increase that they may not have had before or weren't aware of before, or potentially thyroid nodules or a thyroid goiter, and they can all cause symptoms. Now, I've talked about when it comes to postpartum, the 4th trimester, I've talked about already preparing meals for the postpartum period, but just some other things to think about for your postpartum nutrition is we're really just replenishing all of those nutrients that have been heavily depleted during pregnancy that are continuing to be depleted in the postpartum period because of recovery, potentially because of breastfeeding as well. So supplementation, again, like so many women don't realize that you should continue your prenatal supplement in the postpartum period. So we're really needing as much nutrients as we can get in, and a whole foods diet and supplementation are going to help with that. When it comes to recovery and repair of tissues, we're looking at lots of protein. So I would be looking at protein at least 2 grams per kilo of body weight, which is significantly higher than most women are generally consuming, but we absolutely needing those amino acids for repair and recovery. Vitamin C, and when I say vitamin C, I'm talking about not ascorbic acid, but actual natural sources of vitamin C. So like camu, kakadu plum, and also food-based sources of vitamin C like berries and kiwi fruit. So we're needing lots of vitamin C for repair and recovery, and also collagen. So you could consider a collagen supplement or bone broth regularly for more collagen. When it comes to breastfeeding, for breast milk support, if you're struggling with supply, the first thing that you should think of is both hydration, so not just water, but your actual mineral status. So are you getting enough sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium for hydration of cells, and then of course water. But also thinking about, are you actually eating enough food? Because we use so much food and nutrients for breastfeeding, and a lot of women don't realize how much food we actually need to support that. So make sure you're eating enough and drinking enough firstly. Then if you're needing further breast milk support for supply reasons, we're looking at foods that are known galactagogues. So that means that they help to produce breast milk. These foods include oats, fennel, garlic, ginger, fenugreek, brewer's yeast, and chickpeas. Now there are some great, if you Google online, there are some great recipes for lactation cookies that use things like oats, and they add the brewer's yeast powder and stuff in there to help with breast milk supply. So that's a really good way to go. But, even adding some of those foods into your diet regularly can be really, really helpful. The other thing to think about early postpartum particularly is constipation relief. Now there is a big drop in hormones 3 days postpartum, significant drops. I think I've seen it being described as the change in taking something like 100 birth control pills and the amount of hormones that would be in that to stopping taking that. That's like how big the drop is from pregnancy into your 3 days into your postpartum period. So one of the things that can bring on is constipation, and it is one of the things you really, really want to avoid in the postpartum period because of the strain that it can put on the pelvic floor and all the tissues that are trying to repair. So some of the things that can support with keeping your bowel movements regular and keeping them soft include kiwi fruit, so 2 kiwi fruit a day, pears, eat pears regularly, chia seeds. So something that I like to consume is what's called like a chia internal shower, and is basically just a big glass of water with a tablespoon of chia seeds, a pinch of salt, and the squeeze of like half a lemon. Give it a stir, let it sit for 5 minutes, and give it a couple of stirs in that time as the chia seeds will start to absorb some of that water, and then just drink that and have that once a day. Do make sure you're drinking a lot of water to keep that fiber moving through the body as well to avoid constipation. The other thing you could look at for constipation relief is magnesium citrate. The dosage will depend on each individual, but as a general guide, 300 milligrams is a great place to start. You may need slightly more than that. Magnesium citrate specifically in that form just helps to draw some more fluid, some more water into the bowels to soften and loosen stools to relieve constipation. If it becomes more significant than that, you could look at a natural laxative like senna, and there are some other supplements that we can use like cascara, some other supplements that can support constipation. And then overall with your nutrition in the early postpartum period is try and think of most of the foods being like warm cooked foods rather than like raw salads or smoothies or anything cold. It's not to say you can't eat them at all, and obviously depending on what season you give birth in, that's going to depend on what you feel like eating. But if you can get more of those warm cooked, slow cooked foods in, they're a lot easier to digest, and your digestive system when you're recovering, when your body is repairing and recovering, can be a little bit slower, so it can just really help with digestion there. So I hope that was helpful on nutrition considerations for your pregnancy and postpartum period. As always, it's not personalized advice. Please do speak to your healthcare provider or your nutritionist when it comes to your own individual requirements. But these are just some of the things that you can consider to support a beautiful, healthy pregnancy and postpartum period.
Thanks for joining us on the Empowered Flow podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation, I'd love you to share it with a friend and take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. Your support means the world and fuels our mission to empower women everywhere. You can also reach out to me on Instagram at Tris Alexandra Nutrition. Sending big love. I'll catch you in the next episode.